Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cleveland C# VB.NET user group. Couple introductory slides before we turn it over to our main presenter. Our group meets every month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and we cover any and all topics related to .NET. You can find the meeting information posted on meetup.com at the URL listed at the bottom of the slide there. We'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, Tech Systems for sponsoring the meeting space back before the COVID days and hopefully soon once we resume again in person. iNeedle for also covering the pizza and drinks for all of our meetings, and DevExpress and PostSharp for being a sponsor of all the prizes that will be given away using our eval forms. And lastly, I'd like to thank NIS Technologies for sponsoring the web hosting. Some general information, please keep in mind that participation is encouraged and the only stupid question is the one not asked. So always feel free to ask any question that comes to mind, as well as commenting on other questions or answers where you can provide value. However, kindly ask you to mute your microphones when not speaking. This way it keeps all background noise away from our meeting. So we like to keep it casual, make it a round table discussion as much as possible. Feel free to jump in with questions, but at the same time, we want to give our time for our presenter to go through all the material. And lastly, tonight's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, where the link will be provided later in the chat window. As for a feature presentation, it is becoming a contributor to Microsoft Docs by William Assaf. And he's from the SQL Docs team. He's a senior content developer, formerly a Microsoft MVP on the data platform and consultant. And he works with a Microsoft product group on content related to SQL offerings, specifically regarding SQL performance, Azure SQL database, big data clusters, and Azure Synapse. So essentially anything and everything SQL Server related. Is that right, William?
Almost.
Almost. All right. And so with that, I'll turn it over to William and I will make you presenter.
Yeah, well, hey, while we're making the transition, thanks for attending your local tech group. These are important. We were just talking about before how this, before we started, about how important these things are for your own personal, technical, and professional development. So good job being here. Let's keep it going, especially in the after times, right? Everybody remembers how great they were in the before times. So this presentation is becoming a contributor to Microsoft Docs. I'm on the Microsoft SQL Docs team. I joined the team in November of last year. And my name is William Assaf, like Sam introduced. Thanks again, Sam. So today's agenda, we're going to be introducing the concept of DevRel. We're going to cover some tips and tricks on Microsoft Docs that you might not be aware of. Most importantly, we're going to talk about how to contribute to Microsoft's open source Docs as code approach in GitHub, and what you need to know to become a contributor to Docs. First thing you need to know is you'll need a github.com account if you don't have one already. You'll need one to contribute. Then you can get involved. You can give feedback. If you find them, you can give corrections and edits to the docs that you and the entire community use. You might find this rewarding for your career, for your MVP activity report, for your personal brand, and so forth. And again, we're not talking about SQL Docs specifically. I know this is a .NET group, but I've talked to groups of all different audiences. I just happen to be on the SQL Docs team, one of the bigger Docs teams. We're talking about all Microsoft technologies here. So anything Azure, anything SQL, but also Cosmos DB, .NET, everything. Everything is under the same umbrella here. They all have the same approach when it comes to Docs. So throughout this presentation, feel free to add your questions. I'm going to have some breaks between sections, some header slides that kind of look like this. Feel free to come off of mute and ask any questions at any time. We can be fairly informal about this. So I'm on the SQL Docs team. Internally, affectionately at Microsoft, we're nicknamed Rogue One, the Star Wars reference. And when we're not violating multiple copyright laws with that nickname, we support tens of thousands of articles on SQL Server. We work with the product groups and program managers for everything SQL, including all the various flavors in Azure. as well as Azure Synapse Analytics and all the tech under that umbrella. And we also cover content for the data platform tooling like Management Studio and Azure Data Studio. But we're just one team, and today we're talking about all of Docs. Again, for all technologies, we're not talking about just SQL Server today. Okay, so a little bit about the mission statement of the hundreds of employees in content and learning, or CNL, at Microsoft. Look, in short, we have two missions. One is to enable students, job seekers, workers online with great content. Yes. Two, to build an active community of contributors to ensure that we offer the breadth and depth of content to those audiences. Well, that second goal is why we have been doing this presentation. We want to communicate specifically how you can be a part of the quality Microsoft Docs experience, how it can benefit your career, and how it can benefit the quality of the docs. Now, Microsoft Docs are not Wikipedia. It's not open to all edits, but we do have hundreds of thousands of articles. And we want to embrace the wisdom of you and the technical user community to help maintain a very high level of quality. So opening the docs up to external contributors is part of how we scale. The SQL Docs team is just one of many Docs teams from many different products in Microsoft's Cloud and AI DevRel team. So what is DevRel? In a greater role, developer relations is the team that involves activities that connect developers like you and the in-house manufactured goods and services with the external users. So DevRel ensures that products establish a good continuous relationship with external developers through mutual communication. DevRel definitely involves the documentation, sure. But also it involves like reference documentation for how to call an API or code samples. DevRel and other companies might look like community management, issue reporting and triage, release notes, focus groups, public interaction of any kind. Your favorite video game, for example, has DevRel folks who probably send and receive communication with the public on bug reports, troubleshooting, patch notes, discussion, mods. DevRel folks are technical. They know the products well. In fact, at some tech companies, and I'm curious if any of you have the same setup, in some tech companies, developers are cycled in and out of DevRel positions so that DevRel folks have a keen technical awareness and developers have an information on how the end user consumes the products and information, and especially the technical documentation. So at Microsoft, DevRel teams usually have a really strong technical background from consulting or support positions. A lot of us came from CSS, or what used to be called CSS, customer support. I came from 13 years of consulting. Most also have experience with project management, technical writing, and blogging or book writing, for example. Finally, DevRel is a strategic advantage for product teams like your teams, because this type of outreach enhances adoption and it provides authentic community engagement that goes beyond marketing or social media. So Microsoft feels like its DevRel is a strategic advantage over competitors. In a way, DevRel is not marketing to CIOs or CEOs, it's marketing to developers and technical folks like you. There are products out there that we've all used and we continue to use them because we had good support experiences, good documentation, easy adoption, and smooth learning curves. So in that spirit of authentic community involvement, let's dive in. Any questions so far? So let's go real quick over Microsoft Docs and how you use them. And again, we're just using a SQL doc as an example here, but this applies to really any doc that you find on docs.microsoft.com. I'm just going to give you a quick map around navigating the specifics of a doc and some of the features that we've introduced, including some of the new features. I'm not going to explain every link and button. So first off, the Save button allows you to save links, collections, links to collections, and to organize those docs into groups that you might be using for a specific project or studying for a certification exam. You can then also save docs next to Microsoft Learn modules and Microsoft Q&A pages as well to gather all your materials into one place. This might also be really handy for students or folks who don't have access to the same machine all the time, because these are saved to your profile in docs.microsoft.com. You're going to see two search boxes on every page. The first at the top right searches the entire technology stack you're in. For example, it'll search all of Azure. Then on the left, the table of contents covers many different articles, and it is here that you can search the titles inside a given table of contents. On the right, you'll see a table of contents or a navigation for the article itself. And then those header links for each one of the major headers are linkable directly. If you want to send a colleague a link to a heading specifically, you can hover over a heading. That little link graphic will appear. You can click that and copy the URL. And you'll notice at the top in the URL, the location of the anchor. This is just this old-fashioned HTML here. That location can be saved, and you can save that and share that to a colleague. So where it makes sense, the same doc might reference different information for different versions of a product mentioned. You might see this between different versions of .NET, for example, or between C# or VB.NET. We may use the same article for different versions of content on Windows versus Linux, or different releases of SQL Server like by year, or different Azure implementations of SQL Server by product. This one on the bottom, this little code snippet in the Markdown, for example, and we're going to talk a lot more about Markdown later, is showing how one article might display different content information depending on the version requested. And here it's Windows versus Linux. If a doc doesn't look quite right to you because of a version-specific detail, take a look at what version you're in that version selector drop-down box in the top left-hand corner. That may come in handy. That version drop-down also affects the table of contents by including or excluding certain articles. Sometimes we'll handle this doc versioning in tabs inside the document to show you how to do something in PowerShell or the Azure portal or Azure CLI side by side. And then we'll also try to clearly state at the top how the article applies, sometimes with little green check boxes, or we'll just have like a applies to text in the text or a colorful note box throughout to make sure you know what platform or version the article covers. Also note that for content that's specific to older versions of SQL Server and older versions of other technologies, we do still have ways to access that old content sometimes, even if it's only through an offline doc download through Visual Studio. And a quick note about SQL, if you happen to actually use SQL or you work with DBAs, and while we support all that content all the way back to SQL 2012 right now, just a friendly reminder that SQL 2012 is actually going out of support next summer in about 1 year. So if you have any SQL 2012 boxes, it's time to get an upgrade plan in place. And so speaking of Visual Studio, not a lot of people are aware of this, but when you have any text highlighted in Visual Studio, this is in Management Studio, which is a shell of Visual Studio. This also works in SQL Server Data Tools, but really just anything Visual Studio. If you hit F1, the browser should bring you right to the corresponding article for that syntax you highlighted in docs.microsoft.com. This assumes that your workstation has access to the internet and that you've also selected the help preference for open in browser, and this will bring you right to the Docs Online article. In this case, for the article on the dynamic management view sys.dm exec sessions. If you hit F1 in Visual Studio on something that's highlighted and it doesn't bring you to a specific article, or the article that you expected it to bring it to, that actually might be a docs issue. And we're going to talk about how to file a docs issue in a few minutes. It's a bit about SQL Server Offline help. Let me know if you want any more information on that. But how can you provide feedback? First off, any questions about anything that we've just talked about? Cool. So how do you provide feedback? There's 3 main ways. The first is feedback.azure.com. That's for product ideas, bug reports. For documentation issues, then use either a GitHub issue or a GitHub pull request, just as if you were contributing to any other open source project, because Microsoft Docs on GitHub are an open source project. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about under the covers about how we use GitHub to publish our docs at the end of this presentation. So contributing can be done easily through the browser without having to learn Git Bash or install anything. Now, if you're already familiar with a fork, a clone, a pull, and a push and stuff like that, we'll show you how you can use that, and you can do that same thing to work with our docs just like any other open source project. But in the case of SQL Docs, our team, a lot of DBAs are not familiar with Git. And not all technologies across Microsoft's Azure platform use source control. So it's not a problem. You can contribute entirely through the github.com interface, entirely through a browser with nothing to download or install. So we even have a step-by-step tutorial here at this URL, docs.microsoft.com/contribute, to give you a guide through the process of creating a pull request if you've never done that before. By contributing to Microsoft Docs for any product technology, you can be a part of the community and help edit docs that everyone uses. We'll talk about the contributor designation on top of an article, and we average around 16 million page views a month. Again, you can do this entirely within the browser with nothing to install, and you're about to get an inside peek at the process behind Microsoft Docs as Code approach. Content teams like ours across all technologies integrate with product teams. We join their support reviews and team meetings. We coordinate on release schedules. So it really is Docs as Code. So let's walk through it. First off, what is a doc bug? To be clear, support issues don't belong in doc feedback. Similarly, the product feedback channel at feedback.azure.com is also not really for support issues. So these support options that we're about to discuss, the three of them, are not Microsoft support. There's no SLA for response time, for example. If you're having a problem or an unexplained behavior or an outage, contact Microsoft support or your support provider. We triage incoming issues and pull requests in GitHub. And if it sounds like a support issue, your issue will likely be closed up with a polite message and some links. Most doc issues address the docs, and the ones that get attention are a request to fix something that's missing or outdated or wrong, or to a request to add something that would have helped prevent an error or prevent an outage. So let's go through the three feedback options that we've talked about. First, you have the product feedback or suggestions, reproducible bug reports. Those actually don't belong in the doc system. That's for support, or you could use this feedback tool. If you've been around a few years, you might remember the Connect system with Connect items. That's gone away. And those are all migrated to the feedback.azure.com portal. That's the place for comments and suggestions on the products. And that's actually external to us and the Docs team. That's where a lot of really good usability ideas, bug reports come from, though. And it's open to the public, and those get the attention of the product teams. To give feedback on a product, on any article, in the gray box at the bottom of the article, you can click the This Product button, which will bring you to the appropriate feedback.azure.com site. Here you go. Here's the one for SQL Server. On feedback.azure.com, you can then submit your comments and suggestions. You can vote on others' ideas, and there are pages like this for many, many, many different Microsoft products. You might see a lot of these even on social media for when someone has a really good suggestion and wants to get the product team's attention with a lot of votes in favor. You see here a suggestion for a dark theme for Management Studio. I'm personally hoping we get that one day. So let's say you've got a documentation issue to suggest. Think of this as just letting us know, hey, there's something wrong here, you go fix it. We have goals to address these issues in a timely manner, but we'll be honest, issues are triaged and they might take days or weeks to get a satisfactory resolution. Not all issues will become a documentation change. To create an issue, use that same gray box at the bottom of the page. You can use the This Page button. That'll bring you to a new issue screen in GitHub. At this point, you are in github.com and you're filing an issue just like any other open source project. You can throw your comments in there, give it a title, hit the green Submit New Issue. You're done. We'll take it from there. And if you weren't aware, GitHub has a dark mode. Very nice. I don't know how many of you prefer to work in dark themed apps and dark themed websites like I do, but I try to do it all the time. In GitHub, you can go to the overview and you can click this little button on the profile page, a little kitty cat appears, and you get into dark theme. I think you can do it in your appearance settings as well on github.com. And if you're an enthusiast for dark mode websites, docs.microsoft.com, the site we're talking about, has a dark theme too. You can check out the footer of any page in the docs and change your theme. I also hear that dark mode is coming soon to Microsoft Word and LinkedIn, so I'm really looking forward to that. All right, enough about dark themed websites and apps. All right, back to contributing. Third option, you've got a documentation issue and you want to suggest the edits yourself, you can click on the edit button in the top right-hand corner. This will bring you to the GitHub page for that article. In this case, it's a Markdown article, most are. From here, click the red pencil button in the top of the right-hand bar, boxed in red. Again, just like any other file in GitHub. And now you're in the actual Markdown editor of the file itself. You're looking at the actual Markdown code. So it might surprise some of you to learn that Microsoft Docs are in fact not edited in Microsoft Word, but rather in code, in Markdown or YAML. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with Markdown, but if you're not, Markdown's a lightweight text markup language created for formatting rich text with a plain text editor. GitHub has their own formal implementation of Markdown called GitHub Flavored Markdown. Many different online sites use Markdown for their own content, including GitHub, but also GitLab, Reddit, Stack Exchange, Bitbucket, Drupal, and a lot more. So if you're not familiar with GitHub, you actually might be more familiar with GitHub than you think. Make your changes here. Again, if you're not familiar with Markdown, it's pretty easy to understand once you get rolling. Don't worry about it being perfect. The content team, like mine, will always review your content submission and potentially tweak it to Microsoft style or format standards before it's merged. There are plenty of resources online about basic Markdown syntax for URLs, bold, italics, things like that. If you don't get something quite right, don't sweat it. You can use the preview changes feature here that I have boxed in red to see a preview of the Markdown formatting. But once you're done, at the very bottom, you can give it a title. You can give us some comments on your changes. You can give it a description, throw in your a hashtag, ping MSFT docs. That's just a kind of way to wave hi to us. Let us know that you saw our presentation. You can also do the same thing on LinkedIn or Twitter to draw attention, and that way we can recognize you as a contributor there as well. Otherwise, we don't know who you are when you're putting in a GitHub pull request, really. We'll talk more about that hashtag later. You can use that same hashtag all over the place. Then you can choose the create a new branch for this commit, start a pull request radio button. It's actually the only radio button you have access to do. Unlike some open source projects, we will not allow you to commit code to the live repository. You'll notice it gives your new branch a simple name. That's fine. Don't worry about that. If you're not familiar with GitHub terminology like branches or pull requests, again, don't worry about it. You don't have to be. Once you submit your pull request by clicking the green commit changes button here, we'll take it from there. We'll keep you updated as your pull request moves through the process. Your changes for the Markdown file will be proposed for merge, triaged, and reviewed by the article's author and its reviewers. The content team for the article takes it from there, replies to the PR and comments, makes edits if necessary, and then we'll merge the code in. You'll be notified along the way with feedback directly from one of us on a content team. Again, you can do this through your own tooling if you want. Create your own fork of the repository, a branch, a commit, a push, and a pull. We'll talk more about that in a sec. And that's what we on the content teams do every day. But if you just want to use github.com to handle the entire process for you, it's actually much easier. Okay, so here's what it looks like once you've submitted a pull request. Your pull request will open in start in an open status. And you can see this one is already merged from that purple merged bubble in the top left-hand corner, which means it's been accepted and it's been pushed into a preview repository. Soon it will be merged into the live production repository. You can see what GitHub did here for you was to automatically, in the background, create a fork of the repo, create a branch here in Hiroshi's name, and then the pull request includes the commit, which is the red arrow right there, which is in the PR log, and it's next to all the other PR activity as well. The pull request can include many different commits for many different files, by the way. So you can always add more commits to the PR as you go. The log will contain both automated and manually created messages from people internal and external to Microsoft, automation for the merge engines, all the commits, all the conversation and notes from anyone who's been assigned. You'll receive an email anytime someone uses your username with the @ symbol, and you can respond in conversation at the bottom here with the comment button. Once your pull request is created, both you and Microsoft can review the changes that you're suggesting in the pull request. Click on the Files Changed tab to view an in-browser differential. Red is the old code, green is the new, and the changed characters are highlighted. And here we can see someone has just suggested a real simple typo fix, real easy to approve. In fact, you may find creating a GitHub pull request to be easier than creating a Git issue. If you're trying to describe how something should change, there is a typo in the 4th line of the 3rd table of the 2nd paragraph of this article, something like that. It might just be easier to go do it yourself in a pull request. Simply making the PR is sometimes easier than an issue. If you still want to make more changes, like you spot another PR, for example, you can issue another commit, just hit the 3 dots button, hit the edit, and you can make another change there and add another commit to the same PR. After you've submitted your PR, though, you can sit back. We got it from here, and we'll let you know if we have any more questions or if we have a status update. So there's your 3 options. Now, which of these 3 is most helpful for Microsoft? Which gives you contribution credit? And which kind of looks best on a blog or a personal brand or an MVP activity report? The 3rd option, a pull request. That's what actually we all want to see. After your pull request is in, say hi to us on Twitter at pingmsftdocs. We can recognize you there as a contributor as well. We don't know who you are on Twitter, just based on your GitHub PR. Once your commit has been merged into the article via a pull request, then we will put your GitHub profile and a link to your profile at the top of the document. The folks here are those both inside and external to Microsoft who have submitted commits to an article. You only get your name and your logo on an article for a pull request, not for an issue. And so these contributions can be a part of your MVP application, your renewal activity. It's there permanently. If you're not sure how it should change, just give it a shot. If it's not quite right, if it's not formatted perfectly, don't worry about it. We'll adjust it, but at least it gets fixed. For images or graphics, we have designers that update images in a standardized way. There's no need to edit images yourself. You could just tell us what needs to change. You don't have to whip out Photoshop or anything. Finally, capitalization is tough. The capitalization of various features and products inside Microsoft is one of the most nuanced bits we have about publishing. Marketing usually wins these. Marketing always wins these arguments, regardless of how the product's documentation evolved through the development process. We just had a big pull request come through, for example, to make a lot of capitalization changes that were mostly misguided. So again, that task is tricky enough when you have information directly from inside sources. So we'll handle that part. If you spot inconsistencies between marketing content, documentation content, and learn content, for example, you should know we're regularly discussing and working on that stuff internally. But don't be afraid to point something like that out. For example, product names and feature names and phrasing are difficult to get just right. The trickiest is when a generic word is in the product name. So just because we have a product called Azure SQL Database or Azure Firewall doesn't mean that every word database or firewall is now capitalized. This is even more difficult for our international partners and customers because capitalization often means that a product or service name shouldn't be translated or should be translated in a very specific way, but a lowercase common noun of the same term should be translated. Inconsistency in that capitalization confuses translators and customers, so that consistency is important. And it's part of the core goals of our brand voice, which is above all to be simple and human. And if we can do better to meet that goal, let us know. A last bit about the contributions for localization issues, such as a translation issue. If you've got a translation issue to raise, those are actually submitted by email now. And this process changed within the last year. You can download an Outlook email template at this link here, aka MS DocSite Loc Feedback. You can submit your feedback in any language, and it will be translated and routed to the correct localization team. If you've got a technical issue with an article and you're most comfortable submitting your issue in another language, no problem. Instead of creating an issue or a pull request in English, you can use this email template. It will be translated, passed along to the proper content teams, like maybe the SQL Docs team. Either way, thanks for contributing and making Microsoft Docs better for everyone, everywhere. All right, any questions about anything that we've just discussed? About pull requests, issues, anything like that? I'm not actually seeing the chat. Sam, do we have anything in chat?
Dave Heineman posted a comment, but I'm not sure what it's related to. He said never to SSMS. I'm not sure what that's referring to, though. Dave, if you care to unmute and chime in on that.
I could figure out how to
There you go. I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just referring to dark mode not coming to SSMS anytime soon. So seem to always, I want it there, but it never comes. So.
Yeah, right. You know, I hear there's a lot in store for Visual Studio, and then it's kind of a TikTok. My Management Studio for SQL is always kind of a version behind Visual Studio because it's literally two different teams inside Microsoft developing those things. But the big stuff coming for Visual Studio hopefully will include a dark theme. It's got to, right? There's no way they'd leave that out. It's too easy to do that stuff these days, you'd figure. If they can do it in Word, think of how challenging it would be to do a dark mode in Word of all things. They can do it in Visual Studio. All right, well, cool. Yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. Feel free to come off of mute, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So now that you've seen how you can contribute to Docs, let's briefly show some inside baseball and talk about how we use GitHub to host Microsoft documentation. So Microsoft Docs are in Markdown or YAML. We've already talked about Markdown. YAML is used for tables of contents and FAQ articles that we have just because they work better that way for search engine optimization purposes. And if you're not already familiar with YAML, it's a plain text markup language for structuring and serializing data. It's super picky about spaces and tabs and general white space. It has actual structure in those indentation markers. It's super frustrating in that aspect of it. If you've ever worked with YAML, you know what I mean. We spend most of our time in the content teams working in Visual Studio Code, actually, or Azure Data Studio, which is a very similar thing to SSMS and Visual Studio. Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code are kind of the same product under the covers. We have other tools to help with automated link checking, syntax formatting, bulk updates, and a series of include files to tokenize things like a product name. We also have rich set of metadata for each article. And we do pay attention to how articles perform in terms of SEO, traffic patterns and trends. For all that's data driven through Azure Analytics, and we query them with Custo queries. We try to improve poorly performing articles, and we have our own metric and KPIs for what a poorly performing article looks like. For example, if you copy text from an article, or click the copy and try it button on a code sample, that's good. It shows engagement. If you click through, scroll, dwell, same kind of metrics that any website these days uses to measure how effective a web page is, we track that, all without capturing any personal information or wider tracking information. For big article updates, we have systems to include release branches. That's when we want to work on documentation for months at a time, and then we release a new product all at once during a keynote at the Ignite conference or at the past summit or something like that. So some behind the scenes on how Microsoft Docs in Git works, specifically in GitHub, where all Microsoft documentation is managed. If you're new to Git and you don't understand this, again, don't worry. You can do all this through the browser, and this is all managed for you. But let's discuss the basic GitHub workflow here. So a repository like Azure Docs is where the source code is housed and where the website engine pulls Markdown to present you a live website. A fork is a copy of that repository associated to your account in GitHub. So it's associated to William/Azure Docs or Sam/Azure Docs. And we have each created forks of the repo in our own GitHub accounts. To tell the two apart, a common convention is to reference your remote fork as origin and the code base you eventually push to as upstream. These are called remotes or remote names. And these are just the common naming conventions. You can actually choose any name for your remote name. You'll have an origin and an upstream for each repo that you work in. And then a clone is a copy of that fork brought down locally, and the files are literally copied to your workstation so that you can make edits there. So that's a clone on your local workstation or workstations. When you go to make changes to a file or to add or remove files, you'll create a working branch that's relevant to the chunk of changes that you will be making. You want a branch to contain only the changes for a specific feature or an issue that you're addressing, so that it can be treated as a block of changes to go back up the stream. And you can have many different branches at the same time. You're only ever working in one. You check out only one branch at a time. Your work then goes into the branch. And here the branch, for example, is fix issue with an ISO date up front. This is just a really common convention. It makes it easier to tell the order and the date of commits in the PR log. And when you're done, first you will commit that branch locally to your own clone on your workstation. At this point, it's not in the cloud, it's only local to you. Eventually, you will push that commit or a whole bunch of commits in that branch. You'll push the whole branch to your origin in github.com, the fork of the code in your GitHub account. At this point, it's in the cloud, but Microsoft has no idea about it. Microsoft doesn't know anything about your changes until you create a pull request, asking the Microsoft Docs repository to accept changes from your repository, so that your changes can be merged from your fork into the main repo. Now, to explain things a little closer to the reality of how we work internally, we actually have two repositories in the Microsoft Docs account. The Azure Docs repository drives the website, but like true professionals, we don't develop against production. We only develop in a preview repository, so Azure Docs PR, which is not visible to the public, is a Microsoft-only repository, so you don't have to worry about that. That allows us to work in and preview a merged state of our own changes and a preview version of the website internally, instead of using the actual live repository. And this build process to the live website, which also checks links and references between files, usually occurs twice a day to build from the PR to the live website, and it's gated by a team of build reviewers. So when you submit a pull request, though, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just use the Azure Docs repository or the SQL Docs repository or all sorts of, I think the .NET repository and all sorts of other repositories for different technologies, although the Azure Docs repository is huge. You don't have to worry about the preview repositories. You just worry about the one repository that the article that you're trying to edit is in. Your workflow, all the validation necessary occurs inside that public Azure Docs repository. And again, this same docs as code pattern applies to any Microsoft tech in any Microsoft Docs. So any questions on this or how this works? All right. If you're interested in learning more about Git or GitHub, there's a bunch of resources here in Microsoft Learn. And let's talk about what's new in Docs. So starting in February, we actually introduced a bunch of dynamic content at the bottom of many Microsoft Docs articles. It's being rolled out from repository to repository, so you might see it in some places more than others. I think it's pretty universal at this point. But the links in this content that appear at the bottom, beneath the footer of the article, so beneath the next steps or the see also section, this is actually determined by a machine learning solution based on a model that describes customer behaviors within our documentation set. And we've seen really positive metrics tracking traffic to those recommended files so far. So we think this is actually helping people find what they need inside Microsoft Docs. So check that out. That's a new feature. And then also a new feature that's just rolled out in the past couple of weeks is new to Docs. You can add certifications to your login to docs.microsoft.com by permanently connecting your certification profile from Microsoft Learn to your docs.microsoft.com account. You can go to your profile in Learn or Docs to get here, go to certifications and then click connect on the certification profile. And you can then get notifications for certification renewals and a lot more, and link directly to Pearson VUE to schedule any exams that you're pursuing. All right, well, very good. Any other questions, thoughts, gripes, concerns? I am here for them. That's all the content that I've got tonight, Sam.
There's a question in chat from Amanda regarding Custo.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit more, William?
What is Custo? So Custo is an internal Microsoft querying language that was actually developed by one of our Israeli labs. It is kind of like SQL. It's used to query a lot of big data architectures. And so like Azure Analytics is a database platform in a way that is really good at handling very, very large projects. Azure Stream Analytics was kind of a predecessor of that. So now Azure Analytics is what Microsoft internally uses to gather a lot of big data or a lot of streamed data. And then you can use it as a project to do a lot of IoT data and things like that. And Custo is a new language that's been created. It is kind of SQL-esque. It uses pipes a lot more than anything else. And it's kind of backwards, kind of like LinkPad is to regular T-SQL. That's what Custo is, K-U-S-T-O. It's a language used to query those kind of data sources. And so internally, we have a bunch of Custo experts who help us figure out things like how the SEO is performing and stuff like that.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Feel free to either enter them into chat or jump in verbally. Going once.
All right, well, thanks, Cleveland. I appreciate it.
Since there's no other questions, I have a minor question that popped
Yeah,
up
go ahead.
in my mind. So with the marketing group, I know they're, like all marketing groups, they're very specific as to how something is presented in documentation. Yeah, but I'm curious, how technical is the marketing group at Microsoft?
Not. They're yeah, they know the products. They know the interactions between the products. They couldn't necessarily use the products. I could guess. I think we have some that are more technical than others, especially on some of the metadata aspects of it. Querying everything in Microsoft is data driven. So I would suspect that there are Power BI experts and maybe even some Custo folks inside marketing teams, which help them analyze, track usage, adoption, traffic to different parts of the website, especially the sales parts of the websites and Azure websites, stuff like that. But no, I would suspect that they're experts in that part of it, not necessarily in every product inside Microsoft. More technical than I would have suspected in some cases. Sure, they know what's going on in the market for sure. We try to be, like a lot of other big companies, we try to be as data driven as possible.
Understandable.
Good question, Sam.
I had another tech evangelist. He was speaking to the group, and he mentioned that the marketing group even had impact on where certain libraries were stored as far as the namespace and the naming of that namespace. So they were really getting their hands deep into the weeds, if you will. And I was just curious how technical they were. Naming and organizational hierarchy would definitely be something that Microsoft's marketing could have a voice in. Yeah. Okay, good to know. Yeah, good question though. Hey, y'all have been great. It's good stuff. Thanks. If you have any other questions, let me know. If you want to reach out afterwards, you can hit me up on Twitter or LinkedIn, stuff like that. I'm going to send over the slide deck to Sam so you can review, check out all those links if you'd like. Excellent. Appreciate it, William. And before we wrap it up for the night, just have a couple of closing announcements. So if you don't mind, let me take back control of the screen. Yeah, go ahead. All right. So thanks again to William for the presentation. In the chat window, I had posted some links regarding the resources, i.e. the YouTube link, where the presentation will be edited and uploaded within the next couple of days. Please subscribe to the channel to get notifications of uploads. In addition, the tech events that I will go over in just a minute will also be posted on my blog. And there's the link, samnasser.blogspot.com. And you can also subscribe to that to get updates. And then last but not least, the feedback eval. If you would please, again, the link is in the chat window. Go over to that link, fill out the feedback evaluation so we can send William some feedback on his presentation. With regards to tech events, within the Cleveland area, there's on August 3rd, there's the Ohio North Database Training Group formerly known as the past SQL chapter. And they're going to be meeting on August 3rd, which is a Tuesday, and that meeting will be online. On August 18th is the Hudson Codecraft, which was formerly known as the Hudson Craftsmanship Group, that has been renamed under new ownership and new organizers. And the meeting has not yet been scheduled, but they usually target every third Wednesday, which is August 18th. And then on August 19th is the Great Lakes Users Group .net, and they're going to be meeting online. And the meeting meeting information will be posted on Meetup at the link you see here. August 26th, the fourth Thursday of August, that is going to be the August meeting of our group. And we're going to have Joe Kunk from the Lansing area, and he's going to be discussing a new product, a new ORM called SQL Plus Web. And so that's going to be a very interesting topic. Highly encourage everyone to attend. And then towards the bottom part of the slide are the virtual conferences. So there's many that are going on and going well into November, but the reason I like to advertise these ahead of time is to give you a chance to register, buy tickets. It's basically a mix of in-person versus online. On July 29th, which is next Thursday, is .NET Conf. That's going to be online, free of charge. It's an all-day conference, and this time it's going to be a focus on F#. Granted, we're a C# VB.NET group, but if you work in F# or have interest in it, I invite you to check that out. On Friday, July 30th, Cincy Deliver. That's going to be happening in person in Cincinnati, and it's a combination of agile and technical topics, and that is a paid-for event, and you can check them out at cincydeliver.org. On August 18th through the 20th is Codepalooza in Louisville. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly for anyone who's from Kentucky. But that's going to be happening online, August 18th through the 20th, and I believe that is a free of charge event. August 19th through the 20th in Columbus /online is the JavaScript and Friends Conference. August 19th will be workshops that will be occurring online. August 20th are in-person events that will be happening in the Columbus area. And the link for that event is javascriptandfriends.com. October 39th through the 31st, 3 days of Azure-related topics and the Azure Community Conference. And the URL is azconf.dev, and that is a free event. Also, November 8th through the 12th, another free event that is PASS Data Community Summit. Granted, PASS is no longer around, or the original PASS, but rather it's been adopted by Redgate, but it is still community-led. So that is a conference related mostly towards data topics. And although we are a C# group, but we hardly ever do you code an application without access to data and knowing all the different data products that are out there. So it's a good event to attend, online and free of charge. Again, all these events will be posted on my blog, so you can check that out there. Another thing we like to do is discuss job openings. I'm not sure if there's a representative from Tech Systems that's available tonight, but you can always check out the jobs they have available at techsystems.com/itjobs. And always like to ask, who's hiring and who's looking for people to join their team? Feel free to jump in verbally. And if not, we can certainly address that later. You can email me if you're hiring or looking for people. Likewise, if you're looking for work, you can send me an email and I will help connect you with other people who are looking to hire. Lastly, my contact information, my email, you can reach me snasser@nistechnologies.com. You can also find me on Twitter @SamNasser. And my blog, if you subscribe so you can see all the various tech events and postings, samnasser.blogspot.com. And once I receive the slides from William, I will be posting that on there, as well as the transcript to the presentation. And I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you see the link there. And so with that, if there's no questions or comments, I thank you all for attending. And again, just a friendly reminder, please click on the feedback evaluation and fill that out. We'll use that for the prize drawing for tonight. So with that, thanks again to William, and thanks to all who attended, and look forward to seeing you all next month.